Hello everyone, this is Alex, and today we're going to talk about string layering. So string layering is something very cool that you can apply to the string orchestra. So by nature, the string orchestra is just a group of the same instrument, but with different sizes. Of course, a violin is not a viola. People will kill me if I said that, but they still have a homogeneity timbre. So the violin is the viola, the cello, and the double bass. Of course, they sound very much different, but they are working together within the string orchestra. And what's cool is that at first you have 5 of these groups, so including the first and second violins, you have 5 of these groups, so we can ask them to play different things. But then these groups can be divided by 2 each, so you can do a divisi, what we call divisi. Half of the first violins will play something, and the other half of the first violin will play something else. And then you can do this with every section. So that makes for 10 different lines that you can make. So of course it does weaken your sound a little bit, because if all of the section is playing this one note, and then you ask them, well, half of you are going to go away and play this other note, then the sound is weakened, but it's a little bit richer because you introduce maybe a different interval. And now we're talking about interval, but we can talk about rhythm as well. We can introduce so many different layers of rhythm, different techniques, different patterns that work with each other. And one great thing to learn is to know how to vary this kind of different collaborations and these different interactions between the instruments and the different subgroups within the string orchestra to keep the momentum, especially in these kinds of high action parts. So the example I'm showing today is an action part in a movie. I arranged the music of composer Antoine Rochette on this movie called Outstanding, which came out last year, directed by Mélanie Charbonneau. A very intense movie in the military world. And the music is between like this kind of very action, there's so many action scenes in this film, but it's also a very dramatic film as well, so it's got this kind of sub layer, and the string in this soundtrack really represents one important layer that we could work with in so many different ways. So here I'm going to present to you something very much rhythmic and playing with the different layers of the string orchestra. I had a little challenge because I had only a few musicians, so we made some magic with this, and I'll show you how we created a big string layering from only a few strings. Now, before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to the channel, make sure you like this video, leave a comment down below if you're interested in asking questions. And if you like to support the channel, join as a member. You can see all the links below. These days, I also offer a discount code for Ace Studio, which is an AI music generator that really integrates well with your workflow. I'll put a link to a video where I present the software here. If you're interested in that, you can use the discount code, all the details down below. So now let's dive into this video about string layering. All right, so let's get right in. We're going to listen to the excerpt from Outstanding that we're going to be focusing on today. So it's for the piece called Bosnia 1993. It's a quite intense. We're not going to listen to all the way through, just the first 3 minutes, which is involving an arrangement of strings there, alongside some very interesting brass works as well. There's a very low trombone that's there pretty much all the way through, and that creates a lot of tension. It seems like a far distant kind of war sound, something that is very unsettling. And if you've seen the movie, well, this music is in a scene where it's war and there's danger all around the character here. So let's have a listen, and I'll bring up the score, which is right here. So pretty heavy in the strings. You see these are actually quintets that we recorded twice. And you see that the result is very interesting. It's just a very big, a big string quartet or something. You see that some of these notes are double, some of them are not, some of them are just played by 2. And so we're going to go over these after listening. So let's listen to the cue from Antoine Rochette. and then the ending goes right into sound design. So pretty cool, right? It's one of the most relentless piece of music that I've worked on. It's pretty intense, and it doesn't seem so repetitive, even though the patterns are, mostly the same. But it was very hard to put together, just because the patterns are the same, but they're always in a different order. Sometimes starting on the first beat, sometimes starting on the third beat. Like you see here, the pattern really starts here. But if you go a little bit earlier, here it starts right in the middle. We got some notes as well. Here are mostly on the first beat. Here on this third beat, like I could have played a little bit more with the included 2/4 like I did here, but I decided to just mostly keep it in 4/4, just so that performers could focus on playing the right notes and not necessarily counting everything with me. So along the way, I've highlighted some different moments that I want us to look at, and I'm gonna try and have the playback at the same time. So if we start from the beginning, the beginning is actually very interesting because there's a lot of different textures here. So you see that the first lines are all together here. So these three are playing this kind of da-dum, da-dum, dum, ba-dum. They're playing these together. So actually, the line that's above is the first take that we did, and then we did the second one. So you usually want to put the things that should be sounding together so the performers can really tighten it up and make sure that it's right on the beat for your recording. So that's what we did here. So see how it's voiced. So we have the D and the B flat here, and we have the D. This is also played by the viola as well. So both of them are playing these. The E flat is also played by these two, and only the B flat here is played by the violin in the middle. So if we listen only to this. And at the same time, we get these tremolo notes that are very, very, a cause for the anxiety in the scene. We have this lozenge note is actually ID, and this lozenge notes is actually an harmonic, a natural harmonic that you play. You can only play it on the fourth string, the low C, which actually gives a C around here, if I can, like this. Yeah, so this is the note that you're actually hearing. But the harmonic that I written here is a very deliberate choice. The harmonies is a very fragile kind of sound, and you cannot do any kind of tremolo with a harmonic. It's got almost this kind of sul ponticello effect, very very glassy, very vibrant, very unstable, because also you have to make sure that the finger is in the right position, and it's a very small position, so it makes sometimes a little bit of squeaky sounds. So this is what you hear in the tremolos alongside these notes. In the tremolos, actually you have the D here, you have the C that you hear, and the low G here. So it's kind of suspended fourth chord, very much adding to the uncertainty. And this is actually very much like a noisy effect. And with this very low rumbling from the double bass. So these, we recorded the double bass twice. We recorded once in this low note, and then another one that should be an octave higher. So it was easy for the musician, while listening back, to just tune himself to the recording he did before. So this is something that you would sometimes do, like having the double bass here, having actually the double bass here, and then this note would be played by the cellos. But since I had a limited amount of performers, we had to do some different tricks to recreate these orchestration tricks actually. So as you can see here, the tremolo effect is very present. You got the this note that's added also with the cello. Now this is also a natural harmonic. It's played on the D, but you see that it creates the same note. So it's just adding to the texture. Sometimes when you're orchestrating, you're thinking, oh well, I have the D here, so you might not think that you need to add it with another instrument. Well, it's not necessarily true. Even when you're working with a chamber ensemble, like there shouldn't be so many doublings, of course, but when you're working with these kinds of effect, it's very interesting actually to have them overlap. And especially here, what we're doing, this is in diminuendo and this is crescendo. And this one's going to be much more, growing in the texture. These ones that are starting a little bit later, they're actually causing this next section to begin with the spiccatos. And then there were more used for the beginning part. Now, when this whole motor starts, it's really much of an kind of an ostinato effect. But like you see, it's very volatile. It changes all the time. Let's just listen maybe to these first few bars. You see that it's really you start to feel like it's an ostinato, but then it just keeps on changing. Sometimes it goes up, it goes down. Sometimes it's just tita 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 tita. It just play with these two notes, and then tita ta 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 ta, and just keeps on changing forever. So I remember the musicians were always like, "Oh, we have to be focused for this one," especially the second violin. I think the other ones are having a much better time. So yeah, how I decided to orchestrate this. So this was actually written fairly well by Antoine Rochette, and then the other lines were a little bit, a mix of his ideas and my way to make it alive with 10 musicians. So first, this triplet effect. It's super cool, I think. On top of these 8 notes. It's very subtle at first here, but a little bit later here, when this actually a cello comes in its high register, you hear it. It's much more piercing, actually, exactly where we were at. Yeah, here. And what's so cool is that after that, you got this other cello that's starting to play and on the same note, exactly in the same note. So this approach really is a way for you to create dynamism in your notes. So don't think, again, like I said a little bit earlier, that once you put a note, you cannot touch it anymore. With other instruments, you should do something else. Sometimes in that case, it's really much of a texture that you're trying to build, and you're trying to trouble with it, right? You're trying to trouble with, like, this triplet is trying to trouble this viola line and this violin line as well, and then this one is trying to trouble this one, disturb, trying to bring a disturbance in the sound. So that's what we were looking for with this. So not so many notes, not so many pitches, not trying to introduce like the very, very high pitches, really working with all of these strings. Everybody's on top of each other. It's kind of messy, but the effect is there, right? So up here, we don't have our brass instrument yet. We only have our bass notes that are changing, that are moving a little bit. We're actually, even here, there's a little break, and it's only here that the trombone comes in. So let's go right ahead and listen to that part again. Yeah, so it's pretty cool here. What I highlighted, I think, this cello that is written to go to forte. So it's very deliberate that we want him to pop out here in the middle of this texture that is very, it's very like forte already dynamic. But once you have a written crescendo here, I think I actually conducted this session, and I think I wanted it to stand out even more. Everybody to come down a little bit, and actually, yeah, the second groups here are actually coming down a little bit. But yeah, otherwise, talking about the lines here, actually, there's a trumpet here. I don't think it was playing in this cue, particular cue. We usually leave it in the score anyway, just so we know who's at our disposition in a way. Sometimes I like to add in some notes here and there if we have time. So at first this trombone starts alone, and in this kind of high register for the trombone, from medium high register, so really standing out. And it's mezzo forte. You don't have much bass lines as well. Just this sul tasto, three pianos, so here pianissimo. So nothing crazy here. Then getting onto the forte here, and introducing a doubling with the horn. So the horn brings a lot of power here. Sometimes we don't know if we should write this low for the horn. It's very powerful instrument, especially like the musicians we had here are actually part of the Canadian Army. So they were pretty good professional performers, and they were actually, the trumpet was actually playing on the flugelhorn. So it was kind of a repertoire that they were kind of familiar with in a certain way. But yeah, we can say that the trombone is two times more powerful than the horn. In a traditional orchestration, you would maybe need two horns, so à deux, to balance this. But in the context of a studio, you can always adjust the microphones, the individual microphones. So it's no trouble at all. So that's the beauty of, working in the studio. You have all of these rules that you can bend from what you learn from the orchestral books, orchestration books. But it's always good to have these rules at first in your mind, so then you're bending them. So then maybe you can listen to the mix and say, well, I don't hear enough the horns. Sometimes the mixer will need your help to figure that out, And if you're aware of that before, then you can always, help out. So again, more of these tremolos with actually again these harmonics. So these are also natural harmonics. I tried to use as many natural harmonics as I could, especially for these tremolos. I just like the way they sound. The musicians can just focus on doing the tremolo with their right hand, then their left hand just needs to stay there. They don't need to press. It's very easy for them, and it sounds a little bit again unstable, more unstable than an usual tremolo with a held note. So what else? We have the violins now that are playing together. So both of them are playing this line together, just reinforce this ostinato, this kind of unpredictable ostinato. I think here is a little bit more stable, sometimes just a little bit more stable. But I'm trying to find parts that are repeated. It's never quite the same again, actually. So we have also this viola that's doubling some of these notes. This is a G. So see that it's introducing some notes to complement with the upper line here. So these notes were carefully chosen to follow what's written here. You see here we are actually playing all this note D. So just sometimes playing à trois, so by 3, or sometimes just playing these notes by 2. Maybe this note by 2, and then this one just alone. It's not really big deal in this kind of huge sound, as long as you're respecting the chords that you're into. So make sure you watch what chord you are, and if it's important or not, that you try to stick with it. And actually, if we see here, it's not really important at all. This is a E major chord, but we have the the D that's just held, it doesn't mind. It's not changing to the E flat, so it's actually introducing this kind of seventh effect. But to me, that's just more of a held note. So like a pedal note in the middle, right? Pedal notes doesn't necessarily have to be on the lower register. They can be in the middle register like this. So we already talked about this. We got this bass line that's moving quite a lot, and again, these are just going forward. So this is an interesting effect, actually, the independence of the lowest line and just this kind of pedal chord in this upper register, like a machine that just keeps going. And then this note is changing quite a lot. We got these the brass instruments that are also moving quite a bit, and we just got some little moments here and there, like this one here. I really like this chord. I'm gonna listen to it again. Yeah, this little moment here, just the A flat, introducing this kind of Neapolitan second chord or something. And we got a few of these a little bit later, so we're gonna get back to them. So see that here, I felt like I needed to realign the beat. I was tired of feeling we were always on the upbeats here, just trying to make sure everybody was playing on the beat. So here it starts again. We got again some different variations of that. We also add this long notes on the trombone. I put breathing here. I don't know if you've heard here, but he has to breathe. It's too long to just hold the note. Sometimes in the studio you can just adjust this, but actually Antoine Rochette liked the idea that this note would be re-articulated. Let's just listen to that again. Yeah, I like this part very much as well. So first, the Col Legno Battuto. So these represents actually some uneasy feelings. Actually, I think at this moment she sees some characters that are, the bad guys in the movie. And so we have this also very cool thing here with the first violin. These are actually open strings. So what we hear really very, it's so open and it's so raw. It's like anybody could have taken a violin and just done this, right? Maybe not on the beat like these guys did, this great group of musicians. Yeah, it creates this really raw feeling. Open strings are really your best friends when you're working with strings like this. They can really create this raw texture, add some power and some volume to your music. Even if you're holding a note on one string and then doing an open string along with this, it just creates more sound. So you see that a lot in the repertoire as well. Just the use of open strings, even sometimes if it's not in the chord, it doesn't fit in the chord. It's just more sound, more power. So I don't know if you remember, but I did this little character here. This part here is super scary. This F sharp chord, this B flat note here is actually just the same chord. Still the G minor motor that we had, but along with this low F sharp, that just creates this tension with this seventh, this major seventh on the lowest note, only resolving here and then going forward with it. So here we see as well, this is when we realize, there was kind of a break here. We gave some musicians here a break for the music to breathe. So in this kind of music, you need some moments like this. Even though you're taking off some instruments, it doesn't necessarily means that you're losing momentum. So let's listen to this little part here. Yeah, so actually here the piece is slowly ending. So taking off the instruments one at a time. So yeah, this is a very scary part here. We take off these instruments. We have this scary chord. It's actually using some sound design in there. So introducing more and more sound design as this part goes and taking off the strings. I think for the second half, it's only sound design, maybe a few strings here and there. But then this part here, it's really used to, again, create some tension. It's actually just a fifth between the first and second violins. Using a lot of fifths here, it's just more raw or very raw and, an interval that doesn't tell you much about the color of the chord and I think he does use a lot of these in his music, just the fifth, sometimes just with the suspended fourth like we've seen in the beginning. So these are powerful intervals to introduce this kind of noisy and kind of atmospheric effect when you're working with the orchestra, well, even if you're working with sound design or other sounds. So the music is starting to go down. So you see that the second violin is no more doing the exact doubling. We just have the first violin that's doing this line. So we hear more and more the soloist. So makes it more and more naked kind of feel. And some of these notes, we have the cello here that's very active. Actually, the double bass, the viola, the double bass, and the cello are they don't have a second line anymore. I think they stopped playing a little bit earlier. So this cue was done a little bit earlier for them. So we're going back to the quintet almost. Well, I'm saying almost. We have still the first and second violins here. Oh, and we have the cello that's doing this low note here, but still no big doublings on the double bass for the last part. We have some notes that comes in and that goes out here. Playing with dynamics in this kind of music is so effective to just add a layer at some point, a layer of interest, something interesting. It really makes the music alive. Sometimes we just write the notes and don't think about the dynamics. Dynamics are almost more important than the actual notes, we could say, or of course they work in pair, but to me the timbre of the sound really depends a lot more on, of course, the register, but the dynamic. And if you're doing something like this, super cool with the strings, could be cool also with the brass. We have a bunch of these in this part here. Then the ending. And then it ends like this. Of course, you hear high strings. These are actually probably from another group of recordings we did. But he also used a little bit of sound design in there that involved some process strings and all that. So pretty cool, right? How we can do so much with only a few strings, only a few lines. As we're learning orchestration, we always think of big sections, but small string sections can do a lot and adds a very different sound. Especially working in the studio, you can really play with it and play with the volumes and ask them to play close to the microphone and play a little bit louder. And also the beauty of working with live musicians is that you can on the spot ask them to make changes and try some things. And I hope you have the chance to do your own studio session for your music. Now thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.